What's up, guys? Neil Orfield here, taking a look at the Stokastic NFL DFS lineup generator for Monday Night Football between the Bengals and the Jaguars. In this video, I'm going to be looking at lineups on DraftKings. While you're coming in, please like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already done so, and hit that notification button so you can get alerts when our shows go live. If you haven't already signed up for the lineup generator, it is $14.95 per week. That includes DraftKings, FanDuel, every primetime showdown slate, main slates, all that included for $14.95 per week. I think it is a fantastic deal. All of these lineups have been run through the Stokastic Sims and have been found to be profitable in the Stokastic Sim. So all bad lineups in the Stokastic Sims have been thrown out. These are only profitable lineups in the Stokastic Sim. So check it out if you haven't already done so. The link is in the description of this video. If you want to check it out, you can find it there. All right, I'm going to look at DraftKings Showdown lineups. And I'm going to do all lineups. So we're going to get a mix of chalky, balanced, and contrarian lineups in this video. And I'm just going to use the standard projections. On showdown slates, you have the choice if you want to choose a different game script. That's what these 4 buttons are down here. You can choose both teams going over their total, both teams going under their total, or one going over, one going under, whatever you want to do. I'm just going to use standard projections. All right, first lineup we have here, that's an interesting one. We have the Bengals defense in the captain spot and then a full-on Jaguars onslaught. That is a fascinating lineup. So Bengals defense coming in at 2.5% ownership. You have Trevor Lawrence with Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, and Calvin Ridley, and then Travis Etienne, the running back, also full-on Jaguars onslaught, and that's possible because you're playing a relatively inexpensive Bengals defense in the captain spot. I'm trying to think of how this would work. Maybe the Bengals score multiple defensive touchdowns. Bengals offense doesn't really do much, which wouldn't be a surprise with Browning out there. Not the same offense as they were with Burrow. So maybe the Bengals defense puts up a big score with a couple defensive touchdowns, and then the Jaguars are playing from behind, just throwing the ball a ton, having to put up a lot of points offensively. It's really an interesting lineup. Not one that I would naturally come to, but this is also one that, like, my rules would not preclude this lineup. This is a lineup that typically, the way I set my lineups, this would be allowed. It's leaving 3,600 on the table. This one, I think, is going to be completely unique. So I think this is a lineup that, if you look at it in the Sims, if you look at all the different Sims individually, my guess is this is a lineup that doesn't cash very often. Maybe it does cash pretty frequently, but when it wins, this lineup is going to be totally unique. So if it's 500,000 to first, this one is going to win 500,000 by itself, most likely. So probably doesn't work out all that often, but then when it does work out, it can hit in a huge way. So that's, this is the kind of lineup you play it if you have a big enough bankroll to sustain a lot of zeros and wait and, bide your time until you can get that big win. I think this is the kind of lineup that will have a huge win when it wins. It's just not going to win all that often. But honestly, it might have some better cash equity than I realized, just because it does have, like, all of the studs, everybody you want from the Jaguars, which is going to be the better offense in this game. Maybe the Bengals don't do anything. My only hesitation with it would be, well, could I just flip Evan Ingram into the captain spot over Bengals defense? But would it be that shocking to see the Bengals defense outscore Evan Ingram even when the Jaguars offense is doing great? I don't know. That's it's a really interesting thought, but it looks like a good large field GPP. I wouldn't play this in a small field contest, but for a large field GPP, this makes some sense to me. All right, we're getting some unique lineups here. This one leaving 5,900 on the table. We got Travis Etienne in the captain spot. We got Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, and the Jaguars defense in there. And then from the Bengals, we also have Tanner Hudson and Tyler Boyd. Another lineup that I think is going to be very unique, only for large field GPPs, but it makes sense. There's nothing in this lineup that I look at and think there's no way this lineup could work out, which obviously makes sense. Every lineup you get in the lineup generator is profitable in these Stokastic Sims. So it looks like a lineup you could play in a large field GPP. I'm gonna try to find a lineup that makes more sense for smaller field, that's going to hit more frequently, I should say. So these are both of those lineups that not going to hit all that frequently. This one, I would say, is sort of in that boat also, just because it has Andre Yoshevas in there at sub 2% ownership. He has a real shot at scoring 0 fantasy points. So this is one that's still probably not going to hit all that often. And, I did all lineup types. So we have a lot of contrarian lineups within here. This is another one that when it hits, it's going to win a lot of money. Not a lot of people are playing this lineup, but it's not going to hit all that often. So keep that in mind when you play a lineup like this. Now we got Ridley with the kicker and defense and Ingram. No Trevor Lawrence. We have both Higgins and Chase. leaves 3,200 on the table. Another lineup that probably going to be fairly unique. I want to see if I can find a more like standard construction lineup that's going to win more frequently. This is another one leaving 6,500 on the table. Now, if you're looking for those type of lineups I'm talking about that are going to hit more frequently, you just go to the chalk lineups, and those you're going to find more of those lineups there. I did all different lineup types here, so these are all good large field GPP lineups. But so far, we're getting mostly contrarian lineups. This is a full-on Bengals onslaught with Browning, with Higgins, with Boyd, and Joe Mixon, and then Jaguars defense and Evan Ingram. All right, so here's one that's leaving just 100 on the table. This is the lineup that I often warn people about. So we've got the kicker in the captain spot, which allows you to pay up for a lot of studs elsewhere. And the kicker, you often find positive leverage looking through the Stokastic sims on the kicker in the captain spot. My only hesitation with this lineup is it's a lineup that a lot of people are going to play, because a lot of people, if you play the kicker in the captain spot, people do it so that they can fit all of the studs in the lineup elsewhere. And as you can see here, we have Chase and Higgins, we have Kirk, we have Trevor Lawrence, we have Joe Mixon. So like using the kicker there allowed you to play a lot of the studs, only leaves 100 on the table. So I typically recommend, if you play the kicker in the captain spot, leave more salary on the table. So I'd recommend leaving 600, 800 at least, to try to get away from lineups that are duplicated a lot. But for a small field contest, this looks like a lineup. This is a lineup that is going to hit a lot more frequently than the other lineups we've looked at so far. It'll min cash more frequently than those lineups. It has a lot of great players in it. A lot of the top projected players on the slate in this one. Doesn't have really any contrarian players other than McPherson in the captain spot at 1.5%. Otherwise, a fairly chalky lineup. So this is kind of lineup, it's even when it wins, it's not going to win a ton of money, but probably has higher min cash equity than the other lineups we've looked at. All right, I am going to now just go through and save these lineups, and we can see at the end who are the players we're getting to the most of. That's the final screen in the lineup generator. Gives you an idea of who you have, and then you can make adjustments if you want to. So we got 47% Trevor Lawrence, 45% Jaguars defense, 42% each of Evan Ingram and Jake Browning, 40% Christian Kirk, 35% ETN Chase, and then down from there, a lot of exposure to a lot of different players. And this is something I don't usually talk about in these videos, but if, for example, you see these exposures and you think, I want to get less of Jake Browning. You don't believe in Jake Browning. You don't believe that the Bengals offense are going to get it done. What you can do here is, you can pick and choose the lineups you want to play, but if you want to go back and lower your exposure to Browning, for example, just go find some lineups with Jake Browning that you don't love. You can discard those. And then after you have discarded, you can go back and find more lineups, and you can obviously specifically choose lineups that have less of Jake Browning. You can discard the Jake Browning lineups as you go. That's just an example, though. Whatever you want to do, whatever adjustments you want to make to your exposures, it only gives you 40 lineups at a time, which is a little bit. We're getting some bonus lineups right now. It only gives you up to 40 lineups at a time, sometimes 20. But you can always discard lineups and go back and find other lineups that you like within the lineup generator. So you don't just have to take the 20 that it gives you. You can pick and choose the lineups that you like as you go. Just wanted to make that note, since I don't always do that in these videos. You can, adjust. You don't just have to play the lineups it gives you. You can always go back and pick and choose the lineups that you want to play. All right, that is going to do it for this video. Please hit the like button if you haven't already done so. Helps us out quite a bit. Thanks for watching, and good luck.